to the boardroom. This is the Business of Esports. The worlds of gaming and esports are evolving every day faster than ever before. With YouGov's living data, you can probe into the real thoughts and behaviors of esports fans and gamers worldwide. If you're a team, a brand, an agency, or a rights holder, you should be talking with YouGov. They're partners with the biggest names in esports and the biggest brands all around the world, driving compelling results every single day. Check out yougov.com/BOE and schedule a call with YouGov today. From the keyboard to the boardroom, this is the Business of Esports weekly news show / post podcast live stream. I am Paul the Prophet Dawalibi. I'm joined today by my friends and co-hosts, the Honorable Judge Jimmy Baratta, Jeff the Juice Cohen, Lindsay the Boss Poss, and our new friend Jake Phillips, who's going to introduce himself in a second here. For those of you who are new here, what we do is we cover the most pressing gaming and esports topics and news of the week, but we look at all of it through a business and C-suite lens. We dissect, we analyze the business implications of everything happening in this industry, but best of all, we get to do it live with you guys. I know so many of you watch this after the fact, or actually most of you listen to this after the fact, but we encourage you, if you're listening to this now, 2 days from now, 3 days from now, next week, Wednesdays, 2:30 p.m. Eastern time, come be a part of the live show, ask us questions, get in our faces. It makes it so much more fun for everybody. We really appreciate it. How is everyone doing this week? Lindsay, how you doing?
It's just been a whirlwind around here. I feel like there's like a month during the year where I am just not active on the live stream. Last year it was in August. This year it's this month. I just feel like I've been all over the place and I don't even know. Also, everyone, don't expect me a lot next month. I'm getting surgery to fix my ACL, for those of you keeping up. So,
I mean, you don't need to move to go on the live stream. You can still,
I was gonna say,
you can still go on the live stream, hopped up on.
I gotta avoid taking the painkillers though, or my takes are gonna be hotter than anyone's.
It's even better. That's the, that's
drug
the best
Lindsay
part.
could be spicy. Jake, welcome to the live show. Welcome to the weekly news show.
Thank you very much. Really excited to be here. Jake Phillips. I'm with Stream Hatchet as Chief Revenue Officer. We, very similarly to YouGov, help game publishers, brands, agencies, whoever, really understand viewership trends, top games, creators to work with, and kind of measuring this ecosystem. But yeah, really excited to be here today. Thanks for having me, guys.
And for those of you who haven't seen it yet, if you're watching or listening to this after the fact, not live, actually, Jimmy, maybe you could just pop it in the chat. Also, everyone should be subscribed to our newsletter. There's, at least I know 50, 60,000 of you now that get it every single day. But every so often, we will feature really cool stuff from Stream Hatchet. Very interesting data, stuff that they've produced. Really insightful, really valuable stuff. So if you haven't yet, go subscribe to the newsletter in your inbox. You'll get it every single day. Christian says, full house today. Let's go. David, hi, everyone. David, welcome. Great to have you here. Matt says, that would be a great show. I assume you're talking about Lindsay on painkillers. Yes. Everybody take a painkiller, wait an hour, and then do the live stream.
Listen, if we're all in it together, it's a different story.
That's true. We have had people asking us to do a second live show. So maybe the second one every week. We do one serious and one. I mean, Jeff's been hankering for a reason to have, whiskey or something on the show.
It's true.
Scotch,
once we made the 2 o'clock Wednesday, it becomes a little harder to drink bourbon during the show. Not impossible, just a little harder.
All right, let's jump into some news, guys. I will mention that the podcast this week is going to be one of the interviews that I've done. And Lindsay, you said it. This feels like the world has been making up for the lack of gaming conferences over the last 2 years, basically, because every single week I've been speaking at a conference here. And so I've done a ton of interviews. We're going to feature some of them as a podcast episode this week. So that's what you have to look forward to. Interviews I did here in Dubai at some of the conferences here. Actually, you may get us one from Riyadh this week, actually, from Saudi. So you have that to look forward to. All right, let's... Freddie says sissy, referring
That's
to Jeff for sure.
Jeff, and I love it.
This is coffee.
Freddie, great to see you. Love it. Oh, comment of the day already. Calling Jeff out. All right, let's talk some news, guys. There's so much to break down this week. And I want to start with Overwatch. Overwatch is in the news. Overwatch 2, I should be more specific. And I want to put two stories back to back here because I noticed there were two stories with, call it complementary headlines, or maybe not so complementary headlines. Depends how you look at it. And let's look at the first one here. So the first one said, Overwatch 2 hits 25 million players in 10 days. So this is the subheadline says free-to-play sequels, daily player base, triples original premium games, peak daily player count. That's kind of a mouthful. But it attracted 25 million players in their first 10 days. The original Overwatch game only hit a player base of 15 million, and that was 3 months after its debut. So Activision Blizzard I'm assuming is happy with the results, right? The president of Blizzard came out and said that this launch is really important for them. Obviously, what else is he going to say? And so it seems at face value, this is a success. And then I saw this other article, guys, and this is sort of the discussion I want to have, because the other article was this one. And for those who don't know Dunkey's a video game reviewer. And then I saw this one where it says, Dunkey calls Overwatch 2 the most disappointing game of the year. Now, this is just one opinion, obviously. But he breaks down why he thinks the game's a huge disappointment. Critics have panned it. There have been critics who have panned the game. Comicbook.com says, they gave the game a 4 out of 5. They say it's as fun or more fun to play than it's ever been. But it's definitely not unanimous, right? There's lots of people who are very critical of Overwatch 2. I'm curious, put these two stories next to each other, right? Some sort of criticism that the game's maybe not that fun, not that original. It's lacking. It feels a little bit too much like Overwatch, next to 25 million players in 10 days. Give me your thoughts, guys. You're in Activision Blizzard shoes. You happy with Overwatch 2?
Well, I think you have to be happy. I mean, everything Dunkey, number one, you have to take it with a grain of salt, because this is what they do to get clicks, right? It's either the best game ever or the most disappointing game ever. So clearly, I think the reality is probably somewhere down the middle. But everything that he said in his review could basically have been said before the game even came out, right? We've been saying for 2 years how disappointing this game was going to be with just the way they were doing it, the roadmap, that it was this, free to play versus, just the way that pretty much everything about it, we kind of has been setting it up for it to be a flop. But then you look at the numbers, and 25 million people is pretty impressive. Now, granted, the first one was a new IP. It also was a $30 game, if I recall. It wasn't free to play. So it's not shocking that it would beat the first one in terms of, velocity out of launch. But even still, I think if I had told you 6 months ago, hey, Paul the Prophet, Overwatch 2 in their first 10 days or whatever this is going to get 25 million players, I think you would have taken the under. Correct me if I'm wrong. So I think it's a success. Now, what it does from here, does it reinvigorate the Overwatch League? Does it lead to a ton of profits for Activision? I think we can debate those things. And that's what I would do as an investor. But overall, if we're talking black or white, definitely a success.
Yeah, I think one point to note too, and just looking at the numbers in broadcasts across Twitch, YouTube, etc. Overwatch was number 3 in hours watched. They had 41 million hours, Overwatch 2, 41 million hours last week in hours watched. But the stat that really stepped out to me is there were 301,000 unique channels that broadcasted last week. That beat the next game by about 70,000 channels. Fortnite was number 2 with 232,000. So to see a pretty significant gap, not just in viewership, but also in the amount of channels that are broadcasting this title. I think both from the streamer side, I think it's a really positive take that they're playing and enjoying. I think time will tell if they continue to. But I think seeing it 3 and only behind League of Legends and just chatting, and League of Legends, obviously, with a ton of esports viewership globally, that's really generating that.
Jake, I just want to dive in a little bit there, because I think it's interesting, those 2 stats, right? One really points to, I think, and correct me if I'm wrong, the hours watched really points to, you had the really big streamers playing it, right? You had Asmongold on his alt account, you had XQC, you had Trainwrecks, you had like the who's who of Twitch playing the game. And I think most of them were paid. I'm not sure, but I know there were paid streams.
I am sure that is the case. But again, I think what's interesting about that is, even though they had all of the big kind of names in the space playing, the fact that 301,000 unique channels were broadcasting, I think that's the real sticking point for me, which I find fascinating. Yes, the hours watched are great, but outside of even the paid activations, I think to see 301 uniques is the real standout from the adoption.
It's actually a great point. It's one of those things. Back when I was an analyst a few years back, I looked at some of the data, trying to figure out what was more correlated with player base. Was it actually Twitch channels or Twitch viewers? And it turns out the Twitch channels, which maybe it's intuitive, maybe it's not, is actually like a lot more correlated with player base spikes.
Yeah.
So I think that is clearly, we know the player base is high in this case because 25 million people, they announced it. But just in general, when you're looking at Twitch data, I actually think looking at the channels is more interesting for me.
Yeah.
I want to get to Womp TV's. I'm going to bring up his comment here in a second, because I think there's a scenario here, and Jimmy or Lindsay, feel free to jump in. There's a scenario here where both these articles are right? Where Jeff, I can agree with you and say this is a success. Jake, and I can agree with you and say lots of people were playing it, so there's a lot of excitement around it. Lots of people are streaming it, but maybe it's still Donkey's is also correct in that it's not a very good game. And so I just want to read Matt's comment first. Matt says, people can be down on the game all they want. As long as they continue to bring in millions of players, Blizzard won't care about the quality of the product. And this is sort of what I wanted to get to, which is, has Overwatch hit, or has it contracted Call of Duty syndrome, right? Where every year we're just going to see, a new Overwatch that's basically a slight reskin of the previous Overwatch to sort of reinvigorate the franchise on a yearly or semi-yearly basis. Keep that question in mind. We're going to come to it. I want to get caught up on comments. Womp TV says, shout out Donkey. Donkey's a goat. Funny AF creator. Overwatch 2 is a rebalance at the end of the day. The free-to-play model is what revived it. A couple new characters, but the free-to-play model is why it's successful. Do you guys think free-to-play was the thing driving this here? Not the fact that they reskinned the game?
It's a combination of factors, right? You also got to add in the fact that it's been a down year for gaming in general, and that there's just not that much to play that's new and exciting. But I mean, we've been saying, or I know I've been saying for years now, that if you're not doing a free-to-play game, you're kind of missing the boat here, right? There's so many kids that can't afford the $60, upfront charge. It's just it's unjustifiable. They're too young, for a number of reasons. And the free-to-play provides unlimited access, right? Just removing that paywall is, we saw what Fortnite, how that affected Fortnite in its heyday. So I think it's a combination here, because reskinning, right? It's new, it's fun. The rebalance, of course. Change, it's funny, to Matt's point, doesn't necessarily have to be good change, but change in itself, I think, encourages excitement, and people want to try it and see what's different, regardless of if the users end up being happy. So I think change in general is a good thing, but I wouldn't pin it on any one of these things. I think it's a combination of a lot of things that went right, as well as the circumstance of where the gaming industry is this month, this quarter, this year.
Yeah.
I like that thought, Jimmy. It's like it is a bit of a perfect storm, because and Jeff, you alluded to this, I'm firmly in the camp of, not that this Overwatch 2 is a bad game. I'm firmly in the Donkey camp of, this is a disappointing game, because it's just completely underwhelming as a sequel, right? It's if I close my eyes, it looks exactly like Overwatch 1, right? With a couple new characters and a little bit of a reskin on the interface. And yeah, it's 5v5 instead of 6v6, but fundamentally it plays exactly the same. I'm pretty sure it's the same exact underlying engine. And so it's disappointing from hey, they had how many years now? 4 years? More than that. 5 years? 6 years since original Overwatch came out? And this is the best the sequel could do? That's the disappointing part, right? That in 6 years, all we got was a reskin. I think the perfect storm Jimmy is alluding to, though, is the reason why it hit these numbers and why the numbers are surprising to me. I think probably surprising to everybody. There's not that many other good games. Free to play opens it up to everybody. So there's that. It's Overwatch, and people have been wanting Overwatch. Like, Overwatch was a great game. Lots of people loved Overwatch. There's almost nostalgia around Overwatch at this point. It's been out so long. Like, bringing Overwatch back in any form, I think, was going to get attention. So you have sort of this perfect storm in my mind. Anyway, I don't know if anyone wants to add to that. Otherwise, I'm going to catch up on comments here.
Yeah, I just wanted to say that I trust Donkey with my life. So whatever his opinion is, I ride with it. I love video game Donkey.
Womp TV says, I disagree. If a free-to-play game is bad or unenjoyable, I'll uninstall it and never touch it again. I mean, Womp TV, you're right. That's fair, but you'll still try it, right? And I think that's key when you're looking at the first 10-day numbers. I think it was Jimmy who made the point, like, we'll see what the player base is like 6 months from now. I guess that will be the bigger test. I suspect it will be lower, not higher.
I also think when it comes to will they keep doing this question, they will keep doing it as long as the numbers are there. Whether that means that there's an Overwatch 3 and then they end, or there's an Overwatch 23 and then they end, remains to be seen.
Well, isn't that a better business model for Activision Blizzard? Like, instead of releasing characters like a live service, the way they were doing it before, the way Apex does, just every year increment the number by one, put out 2 or 3 new characters with that increment, a few new maps, and call it a sequel. I mean, it's sort of old school a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, that's an interesting point. I think it reminds me of almost Halo's launch recently. It's like, hey, this is going to be on our new Slipspace engine. We want to develop this game over time. So I don't know. It could be a good way to do that. And I think for all of the reasons we've mentioned before, I think Overwatch, you had a great point. There is a lot of nostalgia with it. And I think if we did lose part of that player base in the kind of the middle term, we're seeing a big uptick in re-engaged audience, and the rebalancing may be good enough for a lot of people to stay for a long time. Fortnite's been on top for a very long time. I think we could see Overwatch. Yeah, time will tell, but yeah, they could keep up in the top 10 for a while.
Who here thinks the numbers stabilize? Like, where do we think the numbers stabilize? I'm curious. Take a guess. Player base size 6 months from now.
6 to 8 million.
You think they
under on
like
that.
25%?
Well, I guess we're talking like daily active, weekly, monthly active. I think Overwatch 1 was around that, even like a year ago. Like for, so 6 months. I don't know if they have content, maybe. Yeah, that seems reasonable.
Anyone?
Jake would know. Jake's the data guy. What's your guess, Jake?
Oh man,
I don't know anything.
As a good partner of Blizzard, it's hard for me to say anything. But no, I think 8 to even 12. I think if they can keep content fresh, if we see a really, I mean, we're coming also into Overwatch, and will they be on YouTube forever? Are they going to change back from Twitch? Like, if you look at the numbers, the audience is largely on Twitch for a lot of that. So I don't know. I think if they can keep the content fresh, we could see Overwatch League see a jump by not being exclusive. So I think if the right things happen, we could see it 10, 12 plus. Optimistically.
Let me get caught up here, guys. Sorry. Christian says, hi, Jimmy. Christian.
Happy
hello
to have you.
From all of us also. I'm
Who's
happy
playing
to hear from
favorites?
Jimmy. Wom TV says, yes, it is disappointing. I agree, Wom TV. The donkey review, I thought, was fair and accurate.
But like, when you say disappointing, you have to qualify. Like, was it disappointing relative to what your expectations were a month ago, or what they were 4 years ago? Because like, I don't think anyone was hyping this up. Like, oh, this is going to be great. Like a month or two ago.
No, it like I played the beta also, so like I sort of knew what to expect. So when I say I'm disappointed, it's not like my expectations were sky high and it fell way below. I'm just disappointed from a purely sort of non-relative standpoint. You had 6 years to make a new game and you gave us a reskin, right? That I think hype or no hype, right? Like feels like you're underachieving for again, I guess that's par for the course. Like these days, it's just hard to make really great games. It's not easy.
Yeah.
And this is sort of another proof that it takes a long time, and you don't always end up with the perfect product. Kieran says Overwatch Syndrome is a theory in the community where people are convinced that it's physically impossible to quit Overwatch forever. I think that's an interesting one. I kind of agree with that theory. I've never uninstalled it. I don't know if anyone else feels that way. Jimmy, you're not an Overwatch player, right?
Apex, COD. I don't know why.
Because you were a console kid up until recently.
Right. So I think I missed the Overwatch. Well, Overwatch is. I mean, I have a lot of friends that play it on Xbox, but
they do, yeah.
Yeah. When Overwatch was big, that's also I think around the time Fortnite, right, was really in its prime too, and I was
more Fortnite.
really into Fortnite in 2018, 2017, 2019, and then we went to COD after that. So I think I kind of just missed the boat on it. Also, I feel like Overwatch, you want to play with a large group of friends, right, and get a full party together because it's such a coordinated sport. And I think we were running in fire teams or groups of 3 or 4, and Overwatch required, I believe, 6, right, and now 5. Yeah, so it was just too small, I guess. I need more friends.
Yeah.
Womp TV says Overwatch 2 collected dust on their hard drives probably for at least 2 years before they touched it again and did something with it 2 months for release. I mean, plus there was turnover, right, within the team, and then there was the Microsoft acquisition. Like, I'm sure this was a bumpy road also, just from a managerial standpoint. Was probably not simple. Matt says exactly, there's no way there are still 25 million players, but there were 25 million downloads. I think the way the article was worded, it's not clear. I mean, I assume when they call them players that 25 million people played the game, didn't just download the game. But that's not like concurrent, if that's what the point you're making, Matt. David says the lack of new features, maps, and character diversity definitely make Overwatch 2 underwhelming over time. Well, I mean, they added just like 2 characters and I think 3 maps. Guys, feel free if you disagree or you want to jump in on these. Womp TV says, I think it has potential. It needs to evolve into something more, definitely, but I think the game will perform just fine. You know what I really am curious about? If the new store performs better or worse than the loot boxes. And I want to, I have a bit of a guilty admission. I thought the store, I was going to love it because I actually in other games, like in Apex, I love the store, right? Because I can buy exactly what I want. I don't know if it's because it just didn't feel familiar, but not having loot boxes in Overwatch felt weird to me. Like I almost wanted, I'm not going to go so far to say I almost wanted the loot boxes back. I don't know if that's blasphemy. Womp TV says 30K, 25 to 30K in terms of players 6 months from now. I assume you're referring to. Antonio says, if you get rid of the Overwatch League, does anyone still play this game? Who here thinks those two things are tied at all?
I'm not sure that they are. I think, again, like even prior to Overwatch 2 coming out, I think there's a lot of streamers, especially on Twitch, that play the game. I think that's where a lot of their audience is. I think it exists both on the social side, similar to how Fortnite did, as well as on the esports and commercial side. But yeah, I don't know if those are necessarily tied together.
I agree with Jake. I don't think I've ever followed an esport that I was a fan of or that I played the game. Because I played the game, I usually followed it for a business purpose or personal interest and just, this is a new esport. I'm curious what the stats are like and how the teams are performing. But like when I was head over heels for COD. I never watched Call of Duty League or any of that. I started picking it up because I needed to for work, honestly.
I do like this question though, because esports are a way that companies market their games, and I think it's interesting to dissect when that actually happens. And Overwatch is largely the one that's put the most investment into it, and the fact that it doesn't necessarily pay off in players, or that we don't, again, without knowing any of the numbers, we don't know if it pays off in players, but anecdotally it seems like it doesn't, is interesting for the purposes of league formation and continuation.
Like in general, I always find the esport caters to the most hardcore of players and fans, right? Like there's probably much closer, if you look at the Venn diagram, if I isolate just the most hardcore players and hardcore fans, that's going to be much tighter with Overwatch League fans than sort of the casual player base. And so it's always like, how do you leverage the esport to monetize your most hardcore fans, I think is the challenge, not necessarily bringing mainstream attention to the game. Like I always think that has probably not worked, and why Fortnite has backed off, I think, from doing big splashy esports with big prizes and things like that, because I don't think it drives that many people to the game. Jake, I don't know if you wanted to jump in.
I think it's interesting. I think from that definitely is the case. If you think about like a Dota or a League of Legends, I think it plays right into the really hardcore player base of that audience, and that has kept that game around. But it kind of brings me back to the thought earlier of, okay, well, if we think of League, it's 10 plus years old. It is constantly updated. It is rebalanced. And so in that sense, if they are moving towards a model like that, maybe it does kind of widen the base a little bit more and get people more engaged so that their viewership in turn goes up. But yeah, I think it's difficult because, I think Overwatch has obviously invested a ton in the space. I think all of us back in 2017 when this is happening didn't even necessarily think it was like, hey, esports has finally arrived. This is the splashiest version of this, and it could go swimmingly. But yeah, I think they're not always tied together. But I think if they do move to that constantly updating style with the familiarity there, I think they could get a larger, but again, that hopefully that user base is still really high in 6 months so they can continue growing and monetizing. But again, back to the same factors as before are they going to be better off on multiple platforms better than YouTube exclusive? I think all those things can play into that.
Yeah. Great question, Antonio, by the way. Christian says, while I do like the 5v5 aspect, their competitive structure is hurting with the influx of new players. And that's always going to be hard. I doubt that's, those are champagne problems, I feel like. Managing just too many competitive players. But it is, I've heard already complaints about the MMR and the ranking system and things like that. Like, I think one of the ex-Overwatch League players I don't know if you guys saw this. I can't remember who it was, but got placed after he did his placement matches into like gold, like a very low elo, even though he was ex-Overwatch League.
He's not that good. That's why he's ex-Overwatch League. Everyone loses their fastball at some point.
Kieran says, Overwatch 2 was a sequel forced onto a team that didn't want to make a sequel, so they tried to make PvE, which we still don't have after 4 years, but it's coming, guys. Don't worry. Does anyone think the PvE... Can I put my tinfoil hat on for a second? Do you think they delayed the PvE part purposely to try and sustain player base for longer? Right? Because we're talking about 6 months from now. If it dies down a little bit, people are a little bit less excited. They stop paying some big streamers. And then 6 months from now, the PvE, or a year from now, the PvE game comes out. And now it's over. We're talking about Overwatch 2 all over again. People re-download it, people playing it again. Does anyone think maybe they did this purposely?
I don't think so. To bring Halo up again, do you think Microsoft is holding back from letting us play as elites? I just don't think it's done at the end of the day.
I'm a bit cynical, maybe.
Maybe, but like at this point, it's been however many months they've had an opportunity for those updates. So I don't. Yeah, maybe that's the case, but I think it's just taken a long time.
By the way, Kieran says yes. Jake, to your Halo.
Hey, that's fair. Well, if that's the case, I'm getting my car and driving up there today.
Chris says a lot of pros and high skill streamers are having problems with the incredible unbalanced. Yeah, I've been seeing the same thing, Chris. Rick says the biggest disappointment to me has nothing to do with the characters. They haven't done anything to promote Overwatch League with the launch, and the numbers are as bad as they ever have been for the scene. I mean, guys, that's a
good question.
This is a bit of a rabbit hole, Overwatch League, right? Because I don't think the game is the problem with Overwatch League. Does anyone think the game is the issue?
I think the game is kind of a big part of the issue. It's hard to watch. Like, as someone, unless you play the game, you have no interest in watching Overwatch. You have no clue what's going on. Which, to be fair, that may not matter. Maybe that like it's what you said before. Like, all esports cater to the hardcore fan, and maybe like the problem is with Overwatch, there's just not enough of them to support having a sport around it. But yeah, I mean, I think the Overwatch, versus like a game of FIFA or a game of Rocket League, yeah, like you have no idea what's going on the field if you don't play Overwatch. None whatsoever.
Does no one think that Overwatch League, at least 50% of their problems could be fixed by some good drama between players? Like something to get people talking about Overwatch League. And I keep saying it, Overwatch League has always been too clinical. There's just not enough drama.
50% of their problem could be solved by better movement mechanics too. It's literally hard to watch them bounce.
It's hard. The game is difficult to watch. To Jeff's point, and your point, Lindsay, I give you that. I just think if you like, there are games that are hard to watch. You show American football to someone for the first time, it is confusing, right? There's like 65 people on the field, right? It's not. Yeah. It's not the simplest of games, but there's drama there that anyone can sort of understand, and the players are at each other's throats, almost literally. I don't know.
I guess for this league, do you think the players have enough clout outside? So I think like Scump feuding with somebody in CDL, obviously Scump has a really large market appeal outside of just the game of Call of Duty. I think everybody's going to know who that is. Like, are there big enough players in OWL to be able to generate that kind of friction to help with that? I think that's another good question too. It's always been interesting for us just watching the viewership, because like sometimes like when they're in season, they can't stream, they can't really talk to the audience much. They're in full focus mode. So I think that's a part of it too, is being able to do maybe even more social content or more player-facing content allows them to make that bridge.
That has to come from the top, though, right? Like that has to be encouraged and fostered and supported, and almost designed. It has to be engineered, right? Like you get a player who's maybe a little bit 5% worse or 2% worse, but has a big personality and a big following. I don't know. Yes. Kieran says Overwatch League and players were correlated before I'm so far behind on chat, guys. I'm so sorry. Overwatch League and players, Jimmy said in our private chat that you guys love Overwatch. So again, maybe this is like, it also points to why there's 25 million players that people deep down love Overwatch. Overwatch League and players were correlated before. They aren't anymore with the more casual re-release. That I agree with, Kieran. I think free-to-play opens it up to a more casual audience by design, like literally. Overwatch, Kieran also says, Overwatch League is a huge waste of money for everyone besides the two top most popular teams and the teams that run on razor-thin margins like Washington. I mean, Overwatch League should have generated quite a bit of cash for Blizzard. I just don't think they've collected on all of the fees, right? They've sort of, I don't know if they've what do you call, like where they've deferred them or they've forgiven them. Technically this should have been a pretty big cash cow for Blizzard, but I agree the teams have struggled. Miles says hello. Miles, welcome.
Hey, Miles.
Womp TV, this was to Jake. Speaking of Halo Infinite, all I gotta say is yikes.
The gameplay is smooth, and I just keep abusing myself and trying to playing ranked is very difficult to get in a queue where it's even 1 win, 1 loss, 1 win, 1 loss. So I just put myself through the misery far too often.
David says the ranking system is really skewed at the moment. Winning 7 games for promotion and losing 20 for demotion is incredibly generous. It should be 7 wins, 7 losses, in my opinion. Interesting. I mean, I've never seen anyone complain that the game's too lenient on losses, but David's pretty hardcore, I guess. So that's cool. I like that. Kieran says, I think the game is the issue, actually. I don't play Valorant or Rocket League, but I still watch the esports every once in a while because they're super accessible. You can explain American football with they're trying to get the ball into the other side of the field. I've tried to describe Overwatch League to my parents. It's not that easy.
That is a great comment.
It is super good comment. I agree. And the part of the problem is just all the abilities, right? Because to explain this for people to appreciate what's going on, you would have to understand every character, every ability, every ultimate, every. You're right. I mean, you guys are all Jeff. You guys all made a good point that it's not easy to watch. Hardware Barbecue says, "Yo, Hardware Barbecue, welcome back."
Hardware Barbecue. What's up?
I haven't seen Hardware Barbecue in like at least a few weeks. Hardware Barbecue says, I wish they had more penalties for leaving competitive matches now that it's free to play, so the general audience would be tempted to leave in the middle of a match. I mean, there's a lot of other games that are quite strict with this, right? Valorant, I think, imposes pretty bad penalties. CSGO, maybe they're just trying to go more casual here, guys. I don't know. Do you think it's like the generosity in the losses from an MMR perspective? No penalties for leaving. Do you guys think this is just like we're trying to get more casual here? Maybe that's part of it.
I think, yeah, definitely could be. I think for the endemic base that's there, that is probably going to be there in 6 months. I think making sure those penalties are substantial, I think will at least help keep them around. But yeah, I think that's a dangerous point to have a lot of folks that really like the game want to continue playing to be discouraged like that. Yeah, I know I'd be throwing a controller after a few.
Yeah. Hardware Barbecue says you could probably explain push games, payload missions, and Overwatch to parents.
Yeah.
At least the basic gist of it. Yeah. All right, guys. I got caught up. Great discussion. Thank you for all the comments, by the way.
Who knew Overwatch would be so popular? Maybe this in and of itself is interesting data point.
Let's talk about. I want to move from Overwatch though. I think an equally popular game and one that generates as much passion, and that's FIFA. You guys mentioned it. I think it was Lindsay who mentioned it, or Jeff who mentioned it. And there were two, just like there were 2 Overwatch stories this week, there were 2 FIFA stories that I keyed into that I thought were interesting. And let me just start. I'll present it the same way I presented the Overwatch stories. So the first, again, record-breaking numbers. FIFA 23 enjoys record-breaking launch with 10.3 million players in their first week. Last year's series entry attracted 9.1 million players in 10 days. By the way, Jake, is there some reason why games look at 10 days? Why?
That is a weird one for me. We typically don't look in 10-day increments. I think from the streaming perspective, FIFA's always had a hard time getting a top spot ever in comparison. I mean, you always have Just Chatting and League of Legends up there. I will say, though, that their hours watched last week were 18 million, and they were in 6th position overall, which I think is really strong. And then this week it's dropped a little bit. They're at 14 so far, but obviously the week isn't out yet. So I think they're on track to maybe do it again. But the interesting thing again is it's back to the unique channels. Like if we think about Overwatch 2, it was 301 unique individuals broadcasting. For FIFA, 69,000 individuals broadcasting on across
300,000.
Yes, that's correct. So I think just the streamers themselves, I think there is a much smaller base of broadcasters for traditional sports games in general. FIFA being probably the most popular one.
That's interesting because anecdotally, I feel like people always think FIFA is maybe one of the biggest games, right? Like you would think it's so simple. It's soccer. Anyone can, jump in and play it. That's interesting that it's so many fewer streamers than Overwatch.
I think the simplicity kind of comes back to the demographic for them. I mean, they're still talking and engaging with a lot of people that are in their mid to late 30s that played a lot in college that never really got into the live streaming scene, and it was before their time. And this is a legacy game that they can pick up every year that's going to be pretty predictable. And now they have kids that they can start playing with. So yeah, I think the player base probably will continue to be really high for that reason. But I think, yeah, for live streaming, I think the nature of it just, it's similar with Madden. I just think it's so colloquial to be able to just play with kind of whoever in a more casual setting than live.
Yeah, so FIFA breaks this record, right? And then I see this other story. And by the way, everyone knows, because we've talked about it on the live stream before, the relationship between FIFA and EA is ending. So this is going to be the last FIFA game from EA. Now, FIFA supposedly has another publisher that they're going to be making a new game with. We think we know who it is, but this is just rumors. But then I saw this other article where FIFA was in the headline, and it said FIFA launches football-themed Roblox immersive experience, includes foot bowling. And the interesting part was they could only do this activation in Roblox with the FIFA branding because of the termination of the partnership with EA. And as you guys know, we've had this conversation, right, of who comes out better, EA or FIFA here, right? Who wins in all of this? After seeing this, do you guys think FIFA as a brand is like, I was never convinced FIFA as a brand mattered because I don't think regulatory bodies are that exciting. But is this an indication that maybe it is, and maybe FIFA will put themselves in enough places that whatever soccer game EA makes, if they make another one, will struggle?
No,
Jeff, I don't know if you have thoughts on
the only
this.
reason the FIFA brand matters is because what EA has built that FIFA brand into. So because that brand is associated with soccer video games, this Roblox experience might garner a little bit of interest. But overall, I mean, I don't know the exact numbers that EA was paying, but it was something like double. I think it was like $25-30 million a year. Don't quote me on that number, but it was like a significant amount of money that they were paying to FIFA. And I guarantee you they will not sell one copy less than they would have because it's called EAFC. Like, I just don't think there's anyone who buys FIFA typically will not buy it because it's not called FIFA.
So you don't buy Christian's. What do you think of Christian's comment, Jeff?
I think number one, on the World Cup part, I think he's right. I mean, they definitely will see, some significant engagement increases during the World Cup. As people, like myself who pay attention to soccer every 4 years, we'll pay attention. Maybe I'll pick up the game. So they'll see some boost on that. In terms of it being the last edition, I mean, you might have a couple of people buying collectors, buying a physical disc because they think that if they don't open it or something, maybe in 20 years, it'll be worth something as like the last FIFA. I don't think that's enough to be material, but yeah, I'm sure there probably are people that, maybe there's some collectors out there that it's exciting for. That's my personal opinion, at least.
So has the number, either the numbers on FIFA sales or now FIFA, I feel like FIFA just broke up with their girlfriend, right? And now they're dating around. Does anyone think now that FIFA's free of EA's chains, I'm being sarcastic, that the brand will be even more successful? Lindsay, I know you're just a passionate soccer player and soccer fan.
Soccer is the worst sport. Anyway, so I know, spoken like a true American audience over here. Anyways.
Spoken like someone who blew out their knee playing soccer.
Yeah, God, hand sports only from here on out. So I disagree with Jeff in that I think Jeff totally undercuts the value of the brand. If someone says FIFA, I don't think international soccer governing body. I think soccer video game. If someone says like, oh, I'm playing FIFA or I'm talking about FIFA, like I fully assume that they're talking about the video game. And I would say 99% of the time I'm right. So there is the power to that branding. I don't necessarily think that that's going to affect sales of EA Soccer, but I do think that it opens up the potential for FIFA to do other partnerships like this that are very successful. So I don't necessarily think that EA loses by dropping the obscene amount of licensing fees that they paid for that game, but I do think that FIFA is going to be able to license that brand out that everyone thinks of, video game soccer. I mean, that's FIFA, like that's what comes to mind. That's the association. I do think that they're going to have success licensing that out and building a brand outside of just the EA produced game.
Yeah, and who's the competitor to FIFA right now? Is it PES or? So I think for that, to your point, Lindsay, I totally agree. I think whenever I've thought I don't play either game, but if I were ever to pick one up, it would be FIFA because I immediately associate that World Cup, best brand, best game. That's probably what I'll play from a casual player perspective. So I do think there is some weight, but then again, I mean, the other side of that weight is EA, who is best in class at making this game and has been doing so for years and years. So I think just the legacy nature of that platform evolving over time, I think you're going to get people who are just used to like playing on that platform. If they get something really innovative that brings a dynamic shift, maybe the FIFA branding, but I do believe for people walking into it, that's been a big driver, at least from my perspective. But the product is going to have to follow for them to still have that same brand value for the average soccer fan, especially in the United States.
I mean, that is the rumor, by the way, that the Konami, who makes PES, is potentially the ones who are going to get the FIFA or have already got the FIFA kind of contract.
And they make a good game. Yeah,
I'm going to put you on the spot though, Jake. When we look at the leaderboards next year, is EAFC, assuming that's going to be the title, or FIFA, 24 or produced by Konami, let's say, like who will be on top of the leaderboard between those two?
I think in North America it'll still be EA.
Interesting.
I think. And I do not have any numbers to support this at all, but I think if you were to look at the player bases, I think PES is going to be much more global audience, probably based more in Europe. One of my roommates I had for a long time from Spain, he would constantly bring up how that was the superior game to FIFA. But I think in the US, where most of the audience is for the Twitch and YouTube side, I see them still being at number 6, number 8 next year.
Kieran, by the way, says this will be an interesting topic in a year or two when we get the first non-EA FIFA game. That's exactly the what we're all looking forward to figuring out, because I do think also this will be very telling, right? How important is that branding to a game's sales? Christian says it'll make for a great Harvard business case, I'm sure, at some point. Christian says as long as it's better than FIFA 23, I'm on board. Hardware Barbecue says, funny, I thought someone said soccer. Hardware Barbecue, like a lot of our audience is North America, and if I start saying football, I'm just going to confuse everybody. Football isn't football if the foot doesn't hit the ball most of the time. Just putting it out there. Okay, I'll do my best to call it football. Kieran says, my company creates and runs those immersive experiences in Minecraft. IP is a pain in this world. Kieran, I'm curious your thoughts then on the activation with FIFA. How long you think something like that took to put together? Did money change hands? What would that have looked like in your mind? I am curious if you have any insight there. Womp TV says, glad EA has no rights to FIFA anymore. The Volta mode has been neglected for years. Maybe we will have foot bowling in the official game. FIFA's going to kick ass now that EA isn't suffocating them. That I think was FIFA's that was EA's position, right? That they felt suffocated by FIFA, and FIFA, I think, was saying they felt suffocated by EA. And I mean, I don't know what the truth was, probably somewhere in the middle. But EA suffocating them potentially. Hardware Barbecue says, wow, okay. Matt says, Lindsay's absolutely right. FIFA's a game, not a governing organization, especially when you realize there are smaller national soccer governing bodies, but not small localized games. Well, yeah, I mean, they are a governing body just because they're the biggest and most important. But I get that you guys I think you make all a good point that the brand, people think of it as a game before they think of it as a governing body. Harder Rubber says, would be interesting if 2K Games would do a FIFA since they do WWE games, but that's probably not going to happen. All the rumors I hear is that it's Konami. But none of this has been verified. Womp TV says, please, no PES is apparently terrible. I haven't played it, Womp TV, so I don't know. We need a competent developer that has actual football fans internally. Problem is, there's not, like, I think that's pretty much it in the world of football games, right? Pretty much. PES and
I mean, FIFA's been so dominant for so long, nobody's really wanted to compete with them.
Yeah.
Like, even PES, I mean, I think last year's title, they have in the past had some good games, but if I remember, or maybe it was the year before, they made the game free to play and they got Cristiano Ronaldo to like go exclusive to PES. So I remember like every investor in EA was like freaking out, where it was like, that's it, like they've got competition. And then the game came out and it was like literally the worst rated game. Like I think it got a 0 on like Metascore or something. Like it was like horrible. And they're like 100 times smaller, I think, in terms of players. Like it's an order of magnitude. So I don't think that the FIFA brand will make a difference, but I could definitely be very wrong.
2 more comments here, and then we're going to transition to something a bit different. Antonio says EA wins this hands down. They already have the hardcore players for their titles, as EA holds way too many video game tournaments for their titles. Antonio, I tend to agree with you, and I think that the reality is EA just does have a lot of expertise, right? I don't think we can downplay that. I don't think we should discount that. Like when you've made a certain genre of game for this long, you do understand a thing or two.
It's like some brand new team trying to build a shooter, right? Like versus Call of Duty. It's just like they've done this for, the engine has been built and invested in, and they have the expertise of the people working on the game that know it. So like, EA probably spends $150 million, maybe $150 million a year building FIFA, maybe a little less than that. Think about that over 50, each year, the amount of tech debt. Like if you were to start year one, you're not going to just invest $150 million. You're gonna have to invest like $1 billion to get to the probably scale and stage that you need. So
one last, because I asked Karen the question before. Karen says, I'm not sure about Roblox. It would have taken a team or 3 to 5 devs a couple of weeks probably to make that in Minecraft. And for something that polished, we would probably charge in the $60K plus range. I mean, this is like drop in the bucket for FIFA, right? I mean, literally drop in the bucket for FIFA. You're not talking.
Their executives steal that on a weekly basis. That's just like, pretty standard.
Weekly, daily.
Yeah. Within the grift happy zone.
That's funny.
All right, guys, let's move on.
Wait, this is the perfect time because I have to jump and Jake also had to jump. So
yes,
we are going to hope that December is less busy. I will see all you guys soon.
So Lindsay gives herself an outro.
I'm going to do Jake's outro. But by the way, thank you to Jake and to Stream Hatchet. Everyone, Jimmy, I'm going to ask you to put the link back. If you're not subscribed to the newsletter, go subscribe to the newsletter. Get it daily in your inbox. It's news, it's my takes, it's videos that we produce. But Stream Hatchet every so often will put really cool data in there that's just extremely valuable and extremely interesting. So you have to be subscribed to the newsletter to get that. I also just want to say this live stream very generously sponsored by YouGov. YouGov produces the absolute best data on gamers, games, esports fans all around the world. I highly encourage everyone, if you're looking to go after that gaming audience, don't go alone. Partner with YouGov. If you go to yougov.com/BOE, there's a lot of free data there. There's our YouGov Insight segments where we dissect YouGov data, where we dive into it, and it's all actionable. It's data that if you're running a business, if you're a marketing person at a business, it's data that you can go take to your boss, make good decisions based on. So really recommend go and show YouGov some love. And And if you need to be connected with them, any of us can make introductions. So yougov.com/BOE. We thank them for their support. All right, guys, 2 quick stories before we jump off here. One happy, one sad. Which one do you guys want to do first? You want to do the happy or the sad story first, Jimmy?
I don't know why we even need to have a sad story,
Because
but let's go happy.
We had
Every day my dad watches local news, and I'm like, these are all sad stories. Why am
Local news, it's really
why are we
ridiculous.
watching
Local
this?
It's like woman falls out of a bus and then her leg gets run over, and then her dog also died the next day. You're like, what? Like, why?
Let's start with happy.
Anyhow, yeah.
And then the sad one if we must.
Let's do a lightning round with the sad one.
Lightning round with our 2 commentaries, you and me. Oh man.
I'm pretty sure Paul's frozen, or he's just very happy about that comment.
Yeah.
Just grinning.
Let's give him a second, guys. Thanks for bearing with us, chat. You know, we record this from all over the world. We have Paul in the UAE. We got Jeff in New York, myself in Los Angeles, Lindsay, who just left, in DC, and rotating guests as you will. So every once in a while, I think we get a little hiccup like this. How's your week going, Jeff? I mean, we don't need just need to sit here.
Wow. Now this is just like a Zoom call. I'm thinking of what to say because I know it's all recorded. No, it's good. I mean,
got to be careful.
My wife just had a baby, so that's exciting stuff. So.
Yeah, man, big congrats. We're also expecting, and I know you. Well, maybe some of that is more of a private conversation. Got Freddie in chat. Does Jimmy and his bride live with his folks? Hey, Freddie. We actually had a leak at our place, so while the repair is going on, we are staying with my parents, and it's nice to have a home cooked meal since I'm the cook with my wife, and she can order like a pro. Also see Kieran here in the chat. I switched platforms and Paul is gone. Yeah, Kieran, Paul looks like had some tech difficulty. I think
it was Kieran's fault potentially. You know, so you were carrying the whole thing. Now it's just like a cliffhanger because I really want to know what the happy and the sad story were.
You know, I mean, definitely want to know
Probably
what the happy
something
story
about a chair
was.
review.
Were there any? I saw a Lamborghini chair review out. Let me see if I could pull that up. Who did that? I think it was Secret Lab. Oh no, it was Razer, Lamborghini. And sorry guys, Paul always has the stories queued up. This is what happens when you cut the head off the snake, I guess. Lamborghini debuts. Let's see if I could pull it up. I have some access to this. Nope. Guess I don't have that access. All right, that was a swing and a miss.
Should we cut it off here rather than
I think we end the show in like 2 minutes. We'll give Paul 2 minutes to join up, and then we'll end if we don't get him back.
Cool. We can cut all this dead space out of the VOD anyway.
Yeah, I just feel bad because we have so many of you guys that are watching live and such great commentary from throughout the show today on especially the Overwatch story.
This was a good show. This felt, the last this was one of the good ones. I never would have guessed everyone would care so much about Overwatch.
Same. I'm not really a big fan of the sport, but I like following the news of it. Paul messaged me, guys, that he's on his way back. Let's give him another minute or two.
We got Chris here. Chris, we got to do another dinner in Vegas, the 3 of us.
Kieran says, what if the sad story is really important? I guess we'll find out. Paul is on his way. We got Chris. Yeah, Jeff just gave you a shout out to Chris, but for those that didn't see in our chat, Chris Laporte, Jimmy and Juice are a better show if you ask me. Jimmy, Juice, and the Coin and Chris of Coins. Maybe we start a new spinoff. David Estrada in the chat, cliffhanger for next week. I think we're going to get to it today. In the meantime, I know Paul just DM me, Jeff, if you wanted to share the HOMA financing announcement, because that was a pretty good story, or if you don't want to.
Yeah, I mean, I could share a little bit. The company I currently work for, Homa Games, raised a $100 million Series B. So pretty exciting. We're a mobile publisher. So yeah, go check out some of our games. We're a hyper casual company, so we're constantly launching new games. So you can check us out, go on our website, figure out what games. We also are hiring a bunch of people. So if there are people in the industry that are interested in gaming, I know it's we maybe don't have the most mobile friendly crowd, but I promise it's a great company to work for, and it's an exciting part of the industry. So we're looking for people on the business side, tech side, communications. Pretty much, I think there's probably 60, 70 open roles. So it's a super exciting company. It is based in Paris. So I don't know if we have any. It's obviously remote friendly. I'm here in the US, but if we do have any people who listen who are French, could be super interesting to work in Paris. But we do hire everywhere. So
what roles are you hiring for, Jeff? Just so I check.
Now you're putting me on the spot. I mean, there's like probably 60 or 70 roles that we have open across like publishing, like PM role type roles, PR, business side of things, a lot of different roles.
Hey guys,
thank God you're back, Paul. Oh my God.
We just try not to crash pretty much.
Guys, I can see the comments when I come back in. Okay. This one, Chris. All right. Not welcome. Okay.
We invited him to do a spin-off, Paul.
I come back. Chris is the third guy on the show.
He's sitting in your seat. Oh, this is awkward.
This is awkward. All right. Did you guys do the good news story?
We talked about.
We didn't know what it was.
Series B.
Yes, maybe that was the good news story.
That is the good news story.
Oh, okay. Well, we covered that. So that's.
I thought
exciting.
It was like dog saves streamer from fire.
No, this was the good news story. Homa raises another 100 million. Another 100 million.
I like how it says another. Yeah, that's another 100 million. Yeah.
So congrats.
That is exciting. I kind of covered it before, but super happy to have accomplished that. And yeah, we are hiring a lot of people, so we should definitely, anyone who listens should definitely reach out, apply. It would be great to have folks on board.
So I leave, I crack, my machine crashes. I'm gone for 2 minutes. Chris leaves this comment, okay? And Kieran leaves this comment. You guys, if you guys want, I'll just go back to I'll leave, okay? Between mobile games is the future and Jimmy and the Juice is a better show, if you ask me.
Jimmy and the Juice.
I love you guys too.
I really do think that could work as a show name.
I do think so too. That actually we would need a jingle. I feel like Jimmy and the Juice needs a jingle.
The cover art could just be a bulldog too, Jeff. Like,
of course.
Matt says, "I agree, Kieran, but don't tell Paul."
Too late.
They held it together pretty well. You would be proud. All love. I know. I love you guys, and I don't mind. I'm super happy if you guys love Jimmy and the Juice. That makes me happy. All right, let's finish with the bad news story. I hate finishing on bad news necessarily. Oh no, I'll end with the good news story, but the good news story is like 1 minute long. This was the bad news story that I think at least we have to touch on, which is G4 shutting down. I think, again, I'll preface all stories like this that it's unfortunate. A lot of people lost their jobs. We feel for them. We hope they land on their feet. This is not something pleasant to cover ever when there are failures or layoffs or things like that. But as a business podcast, I think it's our job to at least discuss it, figure out what went wrong, and figure out how we can do better as an industry next time. G4, I think the most unfortunate part here was how they did it. It was like a lot of people found out on Twitter, basically, which is never, just free advice, never a way to fire someone by, not talking to them and then they find out on Twitter. But basically, they never got an audience. That's the short of it. And I'm curious, I don't know if either of you guys watched any G4 TV this feels like Venn all over again. And maybe my question to you guys is, why did they not learn from Venn's mistakes? Like, why were there smart people here from Comcast, right? This had big backing. It had a brand that people loved. There was nostalgia around it. But yet they turned to the Venn playbook, which was an unmitigated failure. I'm curious if you guys think I'm characterizing it wrong or right, or what you make of this.
It seems exactly on par to Venn with for me as well, Paul. And I thought, I mean, maybe they thought Venn was just spending too much in certain areas that they were avoiding, but that the premise or like the core component of the business was still sound. I've honestly never been a fan or never really followed G4 content. I've always been aware of their presence and, you know, kind of seen what they've been doing here and there, but I've never taken a deep dive into the business. And because I kind of always dismissed it, I said, you know, this is really not the angle or the approach, I think maybe. So definitely a shame that happened. And like you said, really not the appropriate way to handle it. And we're certainly feeling for everyone that lost their job there. But you know, I don't have a lot to say on this other than that it's a shame, but it's not something that we didn't see coming. So like you said, were they just blind to it? Did they not care? Did they think that they were for some reason different? And if so, I can't identify either what was different or what they thought was different about themselves.
Yeah, it feels like this is a recurring story, and it probably will be a recurring story where like every 18 months some big media executive like finds esports, maybe his kid starts playing, or her niece comes home one day, is like, oh, like I love video games. And then they're like, oh, wait, video games, there's this massive audience. All we have to do is take exactly what we're doing with our core business and just do it for gaming. Like, wouldn't everyone love the MTV of gaming? Like, why wouldn't that work? Or, the Fox News of gaming. Like, this is a great idea. And it turns out it's just not, because none of them understand the gaming audience. They don't understand streaming. They create these massive studios. Like, the cost structure just doesn't work. And they get beat by like one guy in a bedroom, like XQC or something. Not, they're guys like XQC are reasonably heavily produced, but they're not working on $10 million sets. Like it's just a different production value. And I just don't think that these big companies have the kind of agility to compete or understanding to compete. I don't know why. It's a great, like someone mentioned a Harvard Business School case study about one of the other stories. It would also be an interesting case study, like why these things have failed, because on paper, it's like there's a lot of people watching video game content. We're going to create that content at a higher value. Like, we're going to create better video game content. We're going to take what's done already sort of extemporaneously and make it much more scripted and much higher value. In theory, in my head, I'm like, that should work. That makes sense, but it hasn't. So I don't know why. It would be an interesting case study.
Yeah, I'm especially frustrated by the fact that and maybe there's no one at Comcast who listens to the podcast, but like I feel like I couldn't have laid out the argument for why Venn failed any more clearly when it failed, right? And even before it failed, I said this was going to fail, and here's why. I don't understand when people are this well informed, whether they listen to this podcast or not, why they would repeat the same thing. Like I don't know if, again, maybe the answer, and Jeff, this is to your point, that when media companies get these big ideas in their head, and they're good ideas, right? Let's go after the gaming audience. Good idea. But the approach always is build an expensive set, hire super expensive talent, put all these people in a box, highly produce it, and then come and take what they think is gaming culture to such an extreme that it's cringy and weird and unwatchable. And they followed this to the T now. I've seen this playbook twice, maybe 3 times, and I don't understand it. Like, I don't understand when avoiding this is so easy and so obvious, why they all go down this path. I think that's the weirdest part of this whole thing for me. Antonio says, G4, oh man, what a dumpster fire that whole thing was. I heard they were failing anyways. Well, they were. That's why Antonio, that's why they shut it down. And it was, look, again, I don't think it's the people. The people are good, but the content was bad. It was unwatchable. It was just horrifically bad. This, I'm the guy with Twitch on 24/7 on my third monitor, watching the most, kind of what I would call, for most people at least, unwatchable content. Like G4 was just bad. The G4 staff got the esports player treatment, and that isn't a good thing. Yeah, that's unforgivable, right? Like that's just not, having your employees find out over Twitter before someone from the company, the CEO, whatever, has called them. That's unforgivable. Christian says middle school me would have been gutted. Kieran says they are now. Matt says people like short form video game content. There's still no good consumable long form gaming content besides this. You're right, Matt, that people come back to on a scheduled basis. 100% agree with that. But it's because long form content's really hard. Making a stupid TikTok relatively easy, or keeping people's attention for an hour and a half is not trivial. Antonio says, what do you guys think of the rant Frost had from a business perspective? Would you have allowed it to happen? Did you guys see that?
No, but I'm guessing. Yeah, I don't know. Actually, I don't want to comment. It's dangerous to comment without knowing anything.
I actually didn't see the Frost comment either. I did see that it was part of the story. So Antonio, I don't know if you have a bit of a summary. I'm just looking here. It says Frost calls out G4 TV for failing to support her after backlash over sexism in gaming segment. I guess they didn't back her up. I mean, look, this starts to get too political for this podcast, but I think this falls into the category of the content was no good and no one wanted to watch it. And so, this is why it didn't work. Matt says fans don't care about tuning in to showcases, major esports events, etc. But even non-gaming fans will sit through a 60-second video if it mentions big names like EA, Activision, COD, etc. I mean, Matt, obvious, right? Like 60 seconds, not a big investment. Kieran says, absolutely agree, Matt. Short form's the way to go, even if it's long form narratives. No question. I mean, I just take our own small sort of piece of this ecosystem on the business side. Our TikTok has grown way faster than any other platform. And it's not like we're putting out 10 TikToks a day. People love consuming short form content, but good reminder that people should go follow us on TikTok. Jimmy, maybe you can put the link in the chat. Because we do put different content out on our TikTok, guys. Chris says, great, let's get money for Quibi Esports.
The Quibi of esports is just a great pitch.
That's all that Quibi was missing.
I mean, you have the Ven of or the MTV of esports with Ven. Like, why not the Quibi of esports? What could go wrong? What could go wrong?
All right, guys, let's wrap this up with I don't want to finish on a sour note here. So I just want to finish with this is a better news story, and this is Valve in the news. The headline here, Valve registers mystery video game trademark for Neon Prime. A new Valve IP may be on the way. So they don't know if this is going to be a new game, but they registered a trademark for Neon Prime. I just have a simple question for you guys. You're Valve. You haven't made a new game in, 200 years. You have this great IP with Half-Life. You have great IP with Portal. Why not give the people what they want? Another, a new CSGO, a new Half-Life, whatever. Why new IP? Why take that risk when it's been 100 years since you've made a game?
I mean, there's nothing to say that Neon Prime isn't an extension of that same universe, right? So
True, maybe.
I'm going to stay hopeful that they are comfortably sitting within their wheelhouse and that they're expanding upon it, but that Neon Prime might just be that that part 2 or the saga continues type of mentality or addition to that existing IP. And if not, I don't know if it matters, Paul. I mean, gaming is so hot right now. Like, we complain about Activision or really Blizzard more than Activision for not developing new IP and for continuing to put out the same stuff over and over again, albeit very different circumstances. Because like you said, Valve hasn't put out anything new in quite some time, and everything coming out of Blizzard's camp is, all the new stuff coming out is not new IP, just new extensions of existing IP. So that there is a difference there. But having said that, I think regardless, you just got to be happy that Valve is seemingly trying to make something work. And Neon Prime sounds cool to me. I mean, that on its face, that sounds like a game I would probably try, kind of space agey, I'm guessing.
Sounds
So,
like Cyberpunk DLC or something.
I mean, with Valve, I think you always have to take, any of these news stories and, take a step back and remember that Valve is not a company like most other companies out there, in the sense that I don't think they really care about like making a profit. It's privately owned. It's pretty much controlled by Gabe Newell, who's already a billionaire. They're not public. They don't have shareholders. So I think the answer could literally be as simple as like nobody internally wants to make the sequel to Half-Life and the sequel to Counter-Strike, because they're like, that's not fun, that's not interesting work. And like maybe Gabe Newell's like, I don't want to do that. We always rag on the Activisions of the world and EAs of the world for making sequel after sequel. And he might be the one guy who's able to put his money where his mouth is and be like, that's not a game that anyone here is interested in making, and I'm not interested in playing. So screw it. Like, build this cool thing, Neon Prime, and just like keep milking money from Steam. And like, I'm happy. I'm good. So I think that we have to always take that into consideration.
Yeah, I see the duality here, right? On one hand, it increases the comeback risk. On the other hand, it decreases it, right? And to Kieran's point, the risk of crashing those franchises is scary. So a new franchise, there's a lot less risk. On the other hand, you may have a surer thing with an existing franchise. I think Valve, from an emotional standpoint, and we don't talk about emotion that often in business, but from an emotional standpoint, has been emboldened by Steam Deck, right? Steam Deck is the first piece of hardware that's been a success for them, and I think they're riding this high, and like now feel like they can walk through walls. I don't know if that's the case, but it feels like this has been a little bit of a trend in terms of the what we're hearing out of Valve, where they're feeling themselves right now. I don't know. They're feeling good about themselves is the impression I get. This is Kieran's comment from before. Kieran, sorry, I missed this. I don't have TikTok installed for a few reasons. Just mind numbing, and there's better ways to stay current, privacy concerns. But I think TikTok's going to conquer long form as well. Agreed. And Kieran, we may start streaming on TikTok also. So TikTok does discovery better than anyone else by, orders of magnitude. Also, Valve will almost definitely, this is from Kieran also, will almost definitely be sued by Warframe for the name. There's a character called Neon Prime. Jimmy, your thoughts on this? Is that enough that they could sue?
I'd have to check on that, honestly, Paul. It depends. Is the lawyer answer.
Depends.
Definitely. Just because the trademark is
you gotta pay for that advice.
Yeah. Just because the trademark's been filed by Valve doesn't mean it's been accepted by the USPTO. There's a process of review. So that would be something I think that would be brought up to contest the trademark, is saying that there's a pre-existing one. I don't know if it goes down to like characters that are individually trademarked. That might just be something that they can show prior use of. But like I said, just because Valve registered this trademark doesn't mean it's already been accepted. So that could be an issue, Kieran, where they'd have to rename it. Definitely.
Antonio says no shareholders equals good game. Antonio, that's not entirely wrong. Like, being a public company does create artificial situations, no question. And Valve being private maybe gives them more leeway. Chris says, what if Neon Prime is just Steam Game Pass or RGB lighting for Steam Decks? Think big, boys, think big. I would buy both of those things. So that's kind of genius, Chris. I agree. Steam Game Pass would have 20 million users, I think, basically overnight. Like if you could literally pay 10, 15 bucks a month and play every single game on Steam, I mean, that's obviously not how it would work in reality, because I'm sure a bunch of developers would pull their stuff off. But if that was an actual service, I think it would be the biggest gaming service on the planet. RGB lighting for Steam Decks is clever, though, especially if it's neon. If it can do neon, you know, that would be cool. Kieran says, do you think they're going to invest heavily on other hardware verticals? What do you guys think?
They're definitely gonna follow up the success. This isn't a one-off. I don't know if that means they're gonna put out different types of hardware or just like the Steam Deck 2 in a number of years. I would imagine they take a shot at a more diverse product catalog, though. Why not? Like you said, Paul, they're riding high right now. They're invincible.
I mean, Gaben's a big, he's a big proponent of hardware. I mean, Valve has tried so much hardware. Like, I don't know how the age of our audience, the average. I mean, I know our audience is the average age, but like, I think if you've been around long enough, you know, Steam has had many hardware failures, many hardware failures, and so I wouldn't be surprised if they continue making hardware, failure or success. That's just been, they've been hell-bent on having success in the hardware space, and they've achieved it. And I think no question they're gonna push on that. I mean, already, right? Now they have the docking station for the Steam Deck. Did you guys see this? So basically, it's like a switch where you could plug it in. You know, it goes to your TV. So like they're following up already. So I wouldn't be surprised if we see. Obviously, we're going to see a Steam Deck 2. That's basically been all but confirmed. So they will continue investing there. Kieran says exactly their algo so far ahead, referring to TikTok. Agreed, Kieran. Eugenia says, sorry if I'm mispronouncing that. Given the success of the Switch and other handheld devices, the Steam Deck is also doing fairly well. It makes sense for them to continue investing in it. No question. But I also think there's a bunch of mobile devices that are all going to fail, namely the Razer one and the Logitech one that we talked about last week and the week before. Like these cloud streaming specific devices, I think have zero place. They're solutions looking for a problem. Steam Deck with its more powerful hardware running the games locally on the Steam Deck, I think, is a far more elegant solution, and what we will see more of. If you guys disagree, jump in. Antonio says, I'd pay $50 a month for that service. Yeah, the Neon Prime Game Pass. Antonio, I agree. I'd pay $50 a month also. Eugenia says, I'd love for Valve to invest into larger marketing or promotional support for their existing products. Eugenia, that is a great point, but I also think that's just not Valve, right? Like, does anyone think that Valve? I mean, just look at their track record. They just historically have not done. And again, it comes back, Jeff, to your point, which is, Gabe Newell runs the ship. I think does what makes him happy and sort of doesn't care about the rest. And that has worked.
100%.
But I agree that it would be good for them to invest more in that. All right, guys, I hate to jump off when there's so much excitement around all of these stories. Oh, sorry, I missed one last comment. Mobile phones marketed towards gamers like the Samsung Galaxy lines and Asus ROG Phone have also had some success, even despite Razer's phones failing. True, but it's because they were good phones, right? Like, I don't think anyone's buying them because of, like, people buy them for the gaming features, but if they were bad phones, they would fail, which is why Razer's phone failed. I had a Razer phone. It was not a good phone. David says, thoughts on their VR system? I mean, VR's two-horse race, basically, right? And so, Jimmy, I don't know what you are laughing at. But I think they're making some of the best VR hardware out there. The finger on the index, the Valve Index, like the finger tracking, is better than anything Oculus has today. And so I think they're keeping the ecosystem honest. In other words, they're the competition Oculus/Meta needs to keep pushing great new innovation in the space. So I'm just incredibly bullish on. I'm just hopeful on Valve continuing to invest in VR hardware, because I think it's the competition necessary. Otherwise, it's basically a monopoly. And these are, to me, are the on-ramp we will need for bigger, better experiences, metaverses, etc. So I'm a big fan of the finger tracking innovation. I would love to see more innovation from Valve on the VR side, and I hope it pushes Meta to do better. Also, I'm going to test the new Meta Quest Pro, by the way, so I'll let you guys know how it is. Kieran says holodeck should make some VR gear. The name is already there. Kieran, don't reveal the master plan long term. We're getting to holodecks. It's going to take a decade. We're going to get there. And on that note, guys, I just want to say thank you to everybody. Thank you to Jake from Stream Hatchet who showed up, Lindsay who jumped off, Jimmy and Jeff as always, all you guys in the chat, right? Kieran, David, Eugenia, Antonio, Chris, Matt, Christian. Literally all of you guys. Womp TV who had some great comments also. Rick, all of you guys, really appreciate all of you showing up today. We do this every Wednesday, 2:30 p.m. Eastern time. Make sure to follow us everywhere, on Twitter, on Instagram, on TikTok, on YouTube, on Facebook, on LinkedIn, you name it. We put out content on every single one of these platforms. We really love doing this live with you guys. Definitely tune into the podcast this week. It'll be some fun interviews, live interviews, which will be nice, really change. And don't forget, guys, the most important thing of all, the future is fun. We'll see you guys next week.